Hello and welcome to Ikike Digest, your learning space on Home FTV. I am Kome Odomo. On Ikike Digest, we aim to continuously bring to light environmental issues as it affects the environment and our food system. We highlight policy gaps that do not meet the needs of our people and expose our listeners with accurate environmental information. In today's edition, we will be looking at the topic, solidarity and leadership in environmental development. Why is solidarity important in environmental development? We'll find out today because we have in the studio a very well-renowned and articulate person to speak to this issue. We know that environmental development is a vital element for ensuring sustainable growth and the well-being of future generations. It involves the responsible management of natural resources, the promotion of eco-friendly practices, and interrogation of social, economic, and environmental policies. Central to reaching these goals are the ideas of solidarity and leadership. As the world struggles with the challenges of climate change, environmental degradation, sustainability, individuals, organizations, and governments must collaborate in solidarity to tackle these challenges. And we have in the studio Dr. Otive Igbuzor, who will provide a deeper explanation of how solidarity and leadership can become better in our environmental development. Dr. Otive Igbuzor is a Nigerian development expert, a pharmacist, a seasoned human rights advocate, and he's the founding executive director for the Center LSD. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Kome.
Today we're talking about solidarity and leadership in environmental development. How do we build solidarity amongst different communities and nations that influences the effectiveness of environmental policies?
Okay, as you rightly stated in the introduction, solidarity is necessary for individuals, communities, and nations to come together to address environmental development, because solidarity involves togetherness, it involves unity, it involves being able to unite for the utilization of resources, to unite for the utilization of technology, to unite to take actions that will lead to environmental development, because environmental development entails those things that we can do to ensure that the environment is not destroyed, that biodiversity is preserved, that the harmful effects of climate change do not destroy people, that there is adaptation, and that as human beings do things to live on this earth, they will not do things that will destroy the capacity of future generations to live. And in order to do all of this, you need solidarity. Solidarity among individuals within a community to say that, look, in this community, we must plant trees. Not one person. It needs solidarity and unity. That in this community, we must refrain from felling trees that will destroy the forest. It requires solidarity. Across nations, we require solidarity because, climate change, the effects of climate change, when the ozone layer has a hole, and there is emissions, it has no boundary. Sure. So we need countries to come together in terms of solidarity. And that is why many of us are advocating for return to African philosophies and behavior. Because in Africa, we have high levels of solidarity and togetherness. In South Africa, there's the phenomenon of Ubuntu. You are because I am. Where people come together. In the Yoruba philosophy, we have Omoluabi. which is brotherliness, friendliness, somebody who takes into consideration the concerns of others. We need to bring back all of this into our own practice of environmental management. Because you need solidarity for even waste disposal. Because if one person disposes it and the other does not, there is challenge. We need solidarity for separation of waste into solid and, other forms of waste to ease the disposal process. We need solidarity for waste management and waste recycling. So solidarity is key to ensure that there is environmental protection, to ensure that there is biodiversity conservation, to ensure that waste management is done properly. We need solidarity in the Niger Delta to ensure that the current ecological genocide is reversed. We need solidarity among the Niger Delta people, because recently I was just even reflecting about the Niger Delta situation. Today, there is calm in the Niger Delta, but it's the calmness of a graveyard. There is calmness because they still continues with the amnesty program. In fact, they are, enlisting new people who did not participate in any struggle. The NDDC is in the management of somebody who is better than all the previous people, Dr. Ogbuku. They are extending hands of fellowship to youth, doing youth program, but that is not the key to ensuring environmental sustainability in the Niger Delta. Because all the destroyed areas in the Niger Delta, which are begging for restoration, they need to be restored for future generations of the Niger Delta. So we need solidarity.
Okay, so we do know that there are challenges when it comes to building this solidarity and leadership in environmental development. How can this be overcome, especially in community, to foster togetherness?
There are a lot of ways by which, leadership and solidarity can be built in communities. I've talked a little bit about solidarity. For leadership, there has been several definitions of leadership, but John Maxwell simplified it to simply mean leadership is influence. And we know that everything rises and falls on leadership. Study after study, it has been proven that the success, survival, growth, and advancement of organizations and nations is not dependent on managerial acumen, but is dependent on leadership. And so leadership is key. And there are several ways by which leadership can help to deal with environmental development. Leadership will help to cast a vision of what kind of environment do we want to see, a vision of environmental sustainability, a vision of restoration of the environment. And leadership helps to move people so that they can show solidarity. Leadership helps to ensure that the right laws are put in place. Laws that will ensure environmental protection. Laws that will ensure that when you do any big thing, there's environmental impact assessment. Laws that will ensure that after you have, extracted anything like oil, before you go, there is decommissioning. That you will restore the environment to where it was before. Laws that ensure that the resources from extractives are used for the benefit of the citizen.
What key factors can contribute to successes that would build environmental development through leadership and sustainability and solidarity?
Yes, there are a lot of things that can lead to success stories. We have identified two of them. Yes. One is leadership. The other is solidarity. A third one, which I think is very crucial, is organizing. And I think that is where we need to do more in the coming years. Because about 30 years ago, when some of us started this advocacy work, we were trained that all you need to do is to do evidence-based research, and then you do evidence-based advocacy. That if you study the issue very well, and you know the factors that are responsible, which is problematic with the whole of society, and you prepare a good policy brief, and you take it to the policy makers, that on the strength of your argument, that the policy makers will take the issue and change the policy to protect the environment. But we now know better, that no matter the policy brief that you speak, no matter the outstanding evidence that you produce, that many people will put profit above people. That many people will put their own personal interest above the interest of other people and above the conservation of the environment. And we have also learned that one thing that can hardly fail is organizing. When you organize a movement of a people who believe in something and they begin to pursue it, it's just a question of time. Success will come. And we've seen it. If you take the Niger Delta as an example, during the colonial rule, Niger Delta people saw the injustice that was being meted upon them. And along with other minorities, organized to the colonial masters, and they set up the Welling Commission of 1957 to 58. And all of those ones led to the establishment of the Niger Delta Development Board, which was set up to deal with the issues in the Niger Delta, including environmental protection, and also led to the UNPADEC and the NDDC presently. It wasn't just given out of benevolence. It came out of struggle. And even the Niger Amnesty Program today, they gave amnesty to people who took arms against government. It was struggle. The struggle of the Ogoni people, the Ogoni cleanup that we have today, is a result of struggle and mobilization of people. But it appears to me that we are, kind of being laid back because of the handouts that are being given today. But the environment is still being continuously destroyed. So, one critical success factor for environmental protection, from local to state to national to international, is organization. And I believe very strongly that where we are in the environment movement is to begin to organize more in terms of social movement type of organizing to be able to bring the progress. Otherwise, they will continue to ignore us while the IOCs are leaving the Niger Delta without restoring the destruction of the environment. Otherwise, they will continue to ignore us because our studies showed that about 240,000 barrels of oil is released as spills into the Niger Delta every year. And it's destroying everywhere. Our studies show that beyond the Ogoniland, other areas of the Niger Delta, in Bayelsa, in Rivers, in Delta State, are even more devastated than Ogoniland. And as at now, nobody is thinking about cleanup of those areas. Remember that the cleanup of Ogoniland was estimated to be over 30 years. And here we are now. The cleanup is proceeding at a snail speed. That is of Ogoniland, not other impacted areas of the Niger Delta. So in the Niger Delta, we need to organize more. We need to be more strategic in our demands. Not just demands for handouts, but fundamental demands. Let's remember what led to the struggle. Is struggle for resource control. That the resources that come from an area, the people in that area have right to those resources. Not, you bring all these oil workers, they come to drill oil, and the nearby community people are dying of preventable illnesses and poverty. We need to organize more in the Niger Delta for the Nigerian state and other stakeholders to take us more seriously.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation on solidarity, leadership in environmental development. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for a conducive and serene environment to carry out your research works and need the right content to be at your best? Are you a lover of academics and intellectual books? Do you seek proper works of research for knowledge enhancement? Or you want a place to read at your leisure? The Otive Library and Resource Center is the right place to be. With our well-arranged and fully stocked bookshelves, searching for your preferred genres and authors is made much easier than you could ever imagine. With our well-experienced librarians and guides, you've got a reading and research pleasure to catch up with. At Otive Library and Resource Center, Benin City, Nigeria, it is simply an unforgettable experience.
Welcome back. You've been listening to Dr. Otive Igbuzor, who has been speaking to us on solidarity and leadership in place of environmental development. Before we went on the short break, he was talking about organizing, how organizing can build more that we're doing in environmental development. And still on organizing, how can community development and community engagement become a tool that we can use for solidarity in environmental cause?
Yeah, community engagement is key because they say he who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. The people in the community are the ones that are having the direct impact of environmental degradation and climate change. And it's important to not just engage the communities, but to educate the communities. But this kind of education is not the banking concept of education, where the teacher knows everything and the student knows nothing. It's the kind of, participatory education, where people will facilitate a process of learning, that people in the community will remember how they were conserving the community in those days and what they can learn from that in terms of conservation. For people in the environment to know that solidarity is important. For people in the communities to know that, there are tactics that the international oil companies use to divide them, and they should not fall to those tactics. For the people in the communities to know that all this refining crude petroleum in a way that destroys the environment will, in the final analysis, be harmful to us and future generations. So there's a lot of education. And beyond environmental education, the communities need a lot of political education. Because what we see today across the world is, elite capture of the state. And we are witnessing democratic backsliding. All over the world, fewer number of people are joining political parties. And people who come out to vote in election is decreasing on a daily basis. In Nigerian case, it's very classical. In the presidential elections, only 27% of voter turnout was recorded. That is why today we are living in a country of over 200 million people, but only less than 9 million people determine who became our president. So there's the need for political education. The last local government elections that were held in Lagos a few days ago, there was massive low turnout. If there's any language like that, massive low turnout. The low turnout was huge, And let's know that when there is low citizens' participation, it's beneficial to the elite capture of the state. So what politicians need to do is to have a small group of their followers who will always go and vote for them. And those small groups will ensure the continual dominance of the political elite. So people need to understand, and especially, and I've always made this argument over a long period of time, that decent people, religious people, activists must participate in politics. Because Plato counseled us that if you refuse to participate in politics, you will be ruled by your inferior. Sure. And Edmund Burke stated that for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. The Bible confirms it in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. That when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people groan. There's groaning across the world. There's groaning in Nigeria because wicked people are in authority in local government, in state government, and in the federal level. And there is a need for change of that approach.
Thank you very much for trying to balance everything from the Bible to scholarly word and then to the environment. We've been talking about NDDC and the Ogoni cleanup, and then just recently the Bayelsa State's Oil and Environmental Commission the report was launched, and we saw how much of this pollution is affecting not just the Ogoni people, just like you said earlier, but how can we build a sense of solidarity amongst all of these stakeholders who are preferring solutions to the better cause of the environment?
Exactly what I said earlier. That look, we need organization. And in this, and organizations have started taking place. We have been holding the Niger Delta alternatives in the Niger Delta, national alternatives, and West Africa. But we need to have a more organic link with the communities. In the 1990s, we had Chikoko movement, where we had several movements. The Egi People's Movement, the Urobo movement, They appear to be dormant now. I think there's the need to revive those movements and, if possible, create new movements, because we are in the era of social movement organizing across the world. You see what movements have done in the US to bring about the discrimination against the blacks in the US. We've seen what movements have done in South Africa. We see those movements when they argued for fees must fall. We've seen what movements have done in Senegal. We've also seen what movements have done in Nigeria in terms of Me Too, Arewa Me Too movement, where they brought out the issues of sexual violence in northern Nigeria, which was not discussed in past. We've seen what movements have done in Nigeria with the NSAS movement, that without meeting with government, the 5 demands of NSAS were granted by government. So we need to organize more and put in political education so that this trend of vote buying that we see in Nigeria and making it impossible for people without loads of money to contest for positions in government will be reduced, if not eliminated.
Thank you very much, sir. We are aware that public awareness strengthens solidarity. So we'd like to know how much of it you are doing at Center LSD to raise this public awareness in environmental initiatives.
Well, at Center LSD, we believe that we want to work with the forces of positive change to transform society. So our destination is transformation of society. And that transformation has to happen at different spheres: political, economic, social, technological, cultural, and environmental. And we have a well-established environment program that is based on both education, capacity building, research, and advocacy for protection of the environment and environmental sustainability. And we have done quite a number of work in order to do all of this. First, we've been working on how to get a clean environment in the Niger Delta. So right from, we've engaged with the laws, the many years leading to the passage of the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act. We've engaged in a lot of things about cleanup of the Niger Delta. We have engaged with HIPREP. We've engaged with government. We've supported many ways. We've trained community people in all of this. We are engaging with the issues of gas flaring. In fact, with the support from Green Grant, the Ejiro and Otive Igbuzor Foundation is doing a lot of work on how to end gas flaring in Delta State using Ughelli North Local Government Area as a study point. We've been engaging in campaign for the cleanup of the Niger Delta. And so, but we've also been involved in campaign to stop desertification, for climate adaptation and climate mitigation, and for government to implement the decisions it acceded to from Paris Agreement, and to have a nationally determined program that is well implemented. So we have a robust program, and recently we've increased our publicity and media engagement in terms of the environment. So we have a podcast series from our Development Dynamic Studios on the environment.
It's very crucial to recognize that solidarity underscores an important role when it comes to national issues and addressing environmental issues. And you've been listening to Dr. Otive Igbuzor, who is a seasoned human rights activist and a policy analyst. We've come to the end of today's episode, and you would agree with me that it's very educational and engaging as we've been having this conversation with Dr. Otive. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us your time, and we do hope that when we come to you some other time, you'll have the time for us.
It's my pleasure, Kome. We just hope that this boy will behave. If not, we'll turn up here for them.
Please join us in our next episode as we continue to discuss other environmental issues. Remember to visit our website, www.homef.org, and follow us on all our social media platforms using Echo Homef. I remain your host, Kome Odomo. Thank you.